Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Bryndis. In today's video we are talking about all of the books I read in the month of May. I cannot believe how many books I read in the month of May. It is quite unhinged, to be honest. But let's talk about it. So I had 10 books on my TBR and I read all of them, and we will go through that now. And plus a few more actually. And it was just like, it was such a good month for reading. There was definitely a little bit of variation, but there were 3, 4, and 5 stars. There was nothing less worse than that. And it was just, I had the time of my life with all the books that I read. And even the ones that I gave 3 stars, they were still interesting and fun and, thought-provoking at least. But, so the first book that I finished in the month of May was Dark Age. And I don't have a hard copy of this book. This is the 5th book in the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. It is so good. This series... So this is the first sci-fi series or books really that I read ever. And it is so good. I found this series because I watch literary diversions, her channel. I can't remember her name, I'm sorry. But she talks about this series all the time. So I decided to go ahead last year and start it. And now I'm on book 5 and I love every book. There's one more book out, and I think the 7th and the final book is coming out at the end of this year. But hopefully the audiobook then will come out soon. Oh, this is so good. And the audiobook, the narration is really good. There are different narrators that narrate the different perspectives. And it's done really well, and I really enjoy it. So gory damn, it's so good. It's so good. If you want to dive into sci-fi, or if you even like sci-fi already and you haven't heard of this series, I don't know where you've been, but you need to crawl out from that rock and try that series out because it is so good. The Red Rising Saga by Pierce Brown. Next book that I finished is The Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. I read the Icelandic translation, and this translation is really good. It's really well done, and you can really just feel like you're in Paris. I am a huge fan of the musical, and I repeatedly watch the 10-year or the 25-year show thingy that sometimes you can watch it on YouTube from the London productions. It's so good. It's so good. And this story is really good. There's obviously the core story that you also see in the musical and the movie, with Marius falling in love with Cosette and Eponine being in love with Marius and all these things, and Fantine's tragic story, Jean Valjean and Javert, and all of these things are obviously in the books. But the book is just, it goes so much deeper. It gives you really deep and extensive historical background, and I know a lot of people find that to be unnecessary or just like too much of a tangent. I loved it. I really thought it gave much more depth to the characters as well as to the story. So I love this book. It is so good, and I had the time of my life reading it. Next in line is Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. This is kind of a semi-autobiographical book depicting the life of a governess in Victorian England. And I think she does that very well. I really enjoyed the discussion about children's behavior and the reason for why children are naughty. I think it was very obvious that it wasn't a problem with the children, it was a problem with the parents. But it was, as an early childhood teacher, I thought that was super interesting. There's also a love story, which is cute. And also, I think kind of, I think there's also a lot of like moral like lesson here that, one of the main characters seemed to only want to marry someone who would give her status, and maybe that was not the best decision for her. Maybe other things should are more important. So that was really interesting. I mean, I think that it's a very easy read. It's but it's a very just comfortable, lovely kind of story about a young woman and kind of her coming of age in a way. Someone who, and this, she wants to be independent and provide for her family, and it's just quite lovely. The next book I want to talk about is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. This book is so good. I mean, well, I'm giving it 4 stars because I thought there were parts of it that were a little bit slow, and you were just like, oh my God, get on with it. But overall, it's excellent. And obviously, I think it won the Women's Prize, or it's at least been nominated. So it's a really good quality writing. Her writing is excellent. Her level of research into the Icelandic kind of way of living, the Icelandic psyche, and the impact that nature and the weather has on the Icelandic kind of psyche is excellent. It's so well done. It takes place in 1829, and it tells the story of Agnes, who has been sentenced to death for her part in the murder of these 2 guys. And it's a true story, based on a true story. This Agnes Magnúsdóttir, she really existed, and she was executed, the last person to be executed in Iceland in 1830. And so it kind of tells her story through almost a year in her life, as she's waiting to be executed and living at this farm, kind of, the way things were back in the day. And it's so well done. This story is so gloomy and serious, and I was just like, after I read it, I was just like, oh, I need something fun. Yeah. And I will tell you later what I actually did to get some fun into my life again, because it was so... I mean, the social injustice of the justice system, at least back in the day here in Iceland, it's probably still... It's not as obvious probably today, but it's probably still there. But back in the day, if you were just... Obviously, if you were a woman and if you were poor, you were just you had no chance in life, really. And it was just... So, it's a really good book. I 100% recommend it. I gave it 4 stars, again, because even though I really loved it, but, there were sections where I almost wanted to speed up the narration because, which I never do really in books, unless, like I said, they are boring. So this wasn't boring, but it was just get on with it a little bit like that. But still, excellent book. Next book is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I did mostly read it as an audiobook, although I do have the hard copy. And it is very interesting. It is... Here on the back, it says, it's his masterpiece and widely considered to be the greatest ghost story ever written. Now... I don't think that. That's not true. This is not the best ghost story ever written. Maybe at the time when it was written, but I have a complicated relationship with this book. So part part of me loved it, and I was just, wow. I mean, I love the writing style. I think it is excellently written. It tells the story of a governess who goes to live at this country house and to take care of 2 children. And everything surrounding her being hired and her going there and everything that has happened there is very mysterious and very like spooky. I find that this was more of a psychological drama rather than a ghost story, because I felt like maybe she was imagining things and she was just like going, like having a psychotic break and going insane. The children were definitely spooky, especially the boy, Miles. He's like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't like him at all. But yeah, I'm giving it 3 stars because I don't know. One day I want to give it 2 stars. One day I want to give it 5 stars. So at the moment it's 3 stars. And I think actually I may have to read it yet again, because I had actually read this book a couple of years ago, but I could not remember anything from it. So I think it must have been a case of me putting on the audiobook and then falling asleep and then just the audiobook just going on through the night or something, because I don't remember anything from the first time I read it. But I did enjoy it. I think I wasn't a huge fan of the audiobook, so I think that if I actually end up reading this again, I will just read the physical copy. I don't know. And I did get a Netflix subscription for May, and I watched the first episode of The Haunting of Blythe Manor, which is a retelling of The Turn of the Screw. And so far, like I said, I think I watched the first episode, and it's definitely giving up the creepy vibes for sure. But yeah, I don't know. If you read it, tell me what you think, because it's a complicated book, or I don't know. My thoughts about it are complicated for sure. And then we have Circe. I loved every single thing about this book. 5 stars. It is so good. I love Madeline Miller's writing and her like character descriptions and creations in this book. Her like this descriptions of settings. The voice of the character Circe specifically. Oh, this is such a good book. And yeah, I'm speechless. I loved it so much. And I'm so happy that it lived up to all of my expectations, because I had very high hopes of this book after reading The Song of Achilles and Galatea. And then this is my 3rd Madeline Miller. And I cannot wait to read more by her, because I really love her writing and her writing style. This is so good. And I mean, it tells us just the story of these really cruel gods that are just playing with people. And I don't know, she just does it so well. It is such a good book. I 100% recommend it. It is so good. We have a visitor. She's joined us here. Okay, so the next book that I read was Carrie by Stephen King. And this was a reread. And this was kind of my attempt to... You're so cute. Yeah, so anyway, I wanted to read this one again, because I'm kind of working up my nerve into reading The Shining in June. So I thought I would put some scary books or horror into on my TBR for May. Yeah, like I said, this was a reread. I read it 2 years ago, and when I read it 2 years ago, I loved it. It was a 5-star for me, and I loved the different like mixed media in it. I loved the different perspectives. I just loved everything about this book. This time around, I don't know, maybe because I've been reading more, like more quality. I don't want to say that this is bad quality at all, but it's not necessarily excellent writing. I really like the story still, and I think that King does an excellent job of building up the suspense. But this time around, I gave it 4 stars. I mean, it's really, definitely recommend you reading this book. It is really, really a good story and horrific. The bullying and the abuse of Carrie by different people is just horrific. But it's a very good revenge story for sure. She does maybe go a little bit too far there, but it's a good book for sure. So this is book 8 of the month that I read, and I am going to be doing a review of this book. This is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, a classic haunted house book, very famous. There is a Netflix series of the same name, as you can see here on this ugly sticker. And this is so good. I mean, I know that I'm saying that with every book, but every book was like so good. I don't know what to tell you. It was just a good month. So thankfully, I will say that this book was not as scary as I thought it would be. I did mostly listen to it on the audio. I did read the chapter here and there, mostly just for the vlog or like my review, to be honest. But mostly I listened to it on audio, and it was quite spooky actually. I had to I will talk about that later, but I had to read other books before I went to sleep because I was a little bit afraid of the dark, although there really isn't a lot of darkness in Iceland at the moment with summer coming. But yeah, so I'm not gonna really go into the book. It's just, a haunted house, people who go there to experience the haunting. I really enjoyed the characters. I thought that they were very well kind of depicted and described. Eleanor specifically is obviously excellent, and her inner dialogue and how it changes is very good. And yeah, it's 5-star. There's no doubt this is a 5-star read for me. So the 9th book on my list here that I read this month is Paradise Reclaimed by Halldór Laxness, the Icelandic Nobel laureate. And this is actually a really good book. It really showcases his writing style, which is quite particular, or like specific type of a writing style in Icelandic. He does different type of spelling. He Icelandicizes words, Latin words, Danish words, English words, and creates these kind of new words. And he has a very interesting writing style, and I find that this book really depicts that excellently. I don't know how that translates. I don't know how they showcase his writing style in the translations, because it's very particular to Icelandic. So I'm not sure, but apart from that, his writing is really good in this book. This book is the story of Steinar, who is a farmer in Iceland, father of 2 children and has a wife. He meets this Mormon who is basically on a mission, and he's an Icelandic person who's lived in Utah for many years and comes to Iceland as a missionary. And he starts to talk about things, and things happened, and Steinar actually goes to Utah and starts to live there, leaves his family, and then it's kind of the story of him in Utah and his family that he left behind and all the things that happened. It's quite scathing in its criticism of religion, and not necessarily of Mormonism. I think actually in a way it defends the Mormon Church or the practice of polygamy in a way, even though I don't think Laxness was necessarily in favor of that, but it's just showing us how things are not black and white, and that there's necessarily not one thing that is right. So I think that he does that really well in this book, and I would recommend it actually. I'm also reading this book, which is the biography of Halldór Laxness, and I have barely begun. I began at the beginning of the month or like the middle of the month, and then I haven't touched it. This is gonna take me forever, and maybe I won't even like finish it. We'll see. There is no hurry for sure, but I just wanted to show that I do have this biography kind of on the side. But so I was having some issues in I think around the middle of May, because all of the books that I was reading and I had been reading since April were so miserable, and they were just really heavy topics and just kind of things that were just not boring. I was enjoying my reading, but I wanted something easy and fluffy, and I don't do like necessarily a lot of easy and fluffy. Like I don't like romance or stuff like that. So I decided to reread the Hercule Poirot books by Agatha Christie. I've read all of the books by Agatha Christie, and I read Hercule Poirot, the books where he is the main character, in 2022. And I have to tell you that reading Hercule Poirot or Agatha Christie in general for the first time has been one of the best reading experiences of my life. It was so good. Oh, I have black hair. Oh, Emma. And so the first book that I read was the first book with Hercule Poirot, the first book that Agatha Christie published, and it is called The Mysterious Affair at Styles. And I do have a video up on my channel where I'm talking about this book. This is such a good book. Poirot is introduced so well, and the relationship between Poirot and Captain Hastings is so good, and it's just so good. 5 stars. But I also read 2 other books by him, and this one was narrated. I mostly read it as an audiobook narrated by Hugh Fraser. Hugh Fraser is so good at narrating Poirot. He does it. It's pure joy listening to these audiobooks. But then I also listened to Murder on the Links. I don't have a physical copy of that, and that one was also narrated by Hugh Fraser. This is the second book with Hercule Poirot, and it's really fun. And I think I gave it 5 stars as well. I may have given it 4. No, I think I gave it 5 stars because it is just excellent. I could not remember at all the plot or like who done it in this book or the first book, which is probably my sign of my memory being really bad. But it was just really good, and I really loved it. And Captain Hastings falls in love, and it's so cute and lovely and absolutely fantastic. And then the third Agatha Christie book that I read, the 12th book that I read this month, was Poirot Investigates, which is a short story collection. I think there are 11 rather than 12 short stories in there. And I would say that they are definitely a hit or miss. I gave this book or the collection in total 4 stars. I think there are a couple in there that I really didn't really necessarily enjoy. I kind of just whatever. There were a few 4 stars in there that were okay, but then I think there were like 3 or 4 of the short stories that I thought were just really, really good. But it's definitely worth a read, but it's not as good as other Poirot books that I've read. And I'm going to be continuing to read more of them, for sure. I really hope that this video isn't going to be like 1,000 years long, but I have just I had such a good month of reading, and I have so much to say about most of these books because they were just really good. And I like I said, I don't really know how I managed to read so many books because, you know, definitely the first half of the month was really, really busy for me. But yeah, reading is definitely one of the things that I do for the most part. Like I do it all the time, but it's such a self-care thing for me to really enjoy my books, and that's definitely something that I did in May. Anyway, I think Emma needs more attention from me, so I'm gonna go and cuddle her. Thank you for watching. If you've read any of these books or have any thoughts or comments to make, please do leave them down below in the comment section and let's have a chat. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! Look at the rave. The rave.